Gauragaganya Ganagocha Goloduharam Gauranga Gurutama Gopyada Kopa Briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yatisingha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami Uttama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachia Dile Kakola Kahe Premananda Emona Gauranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Gauranga Kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera Namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Prana Re Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema Bidana Parama Pumata Tasmai Jagan Mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopala Sri Kriyat Kripaya Jari Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Risha Yusta Priya Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunatha Brajabala Pahima Vanchakalpatarubhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 8 of us, 9 of us counting myself here in Czech, and 3 in South Africa. I want to apologize, Chaitanya Prabhu, and the devotees there. I really want to keep this Sangha strong. It's just been really hard, as I was just saying a few minutes ago, because of our traveling and assembly classes. So we're going to continue with chapter 5 of Embankment of Separation. And for those of you who've read Embankment of Separation, you haven't read this, because this is a new chapter. We've added 3 new chapters to the book. And one of them is chapter 5, which is speaks about, what's the title of the chapter? The 10 stages of Viraha. And I'm going to review quite a bit on this chapter. For those of you in South Africa, you've already heard this, but since it's been, I think, 3 weeks or something since we had a session, so I don't think it's going to hurt you anyway. Just 1 second. So, Guru Maharaj is reading from Srila Prabhupada's purport to Adi 1341 and 42, speaking about the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Vidyapati Jayadeva Chandidasya Gita Aswadena Ramananda Swarupa Sahita, and how Sri Damodar Goswami and Rai Ramananda were singing songs of Vidyapati, Jayadeva, and Chandidas, and thereby Aswadena. They were helping Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to relish. So this particular chapter we decided to add is pretty like off the charts. This is about the highest philosophy you'll get in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, more or less. That's a relative statement, because you can say different things or different degrees of intimacy or transcendental eroticism or philosophy or whatever. But Guru Maharaj is speaking here about how Mahaprabhu is always feeling separation, and he's always crying in the mood of Radha. And he speaks about 10 different symptoms of that. So we know from Rupa Goswami's Ujjvala Nilamani, there are four different types of separation and four different types of union. The separation are Purva Ragas Chatamana, Prema Vachitchanichipi, Pravasas Katitampa, Vipalambas Chaturvidaha. Vipalambas Chaturvidaha. There's four different types of separation, beginning with Purva Raga, before the lover and the beloved are together, but they've heard about each other and they're feeling separation even at that point. And we have perverted reflections of that in this world. A boy watches a girl in the movies, a movie star, and he falls madly in love with her just by hearing something about her, seeing her, or vice versa. And the girl falls in love with the boy, the star. That's called Purva Raga. It's separation they haven't yet met. And then there's man. Man is sulkiness, or loving anger. And it's generally, and there's two types, hoitaki and ahoitaki, with a motivation, with a reason, without a reason. Sometimes Krishna does something really bad. He's supposed to meet Radharani in the Kunj, and instead he goes to see Chandravali. And that Radharani becomes angry. That's hoitaki man. Ahoitaki man means when she just decides to become angry for no good reason. And then there's prema vaichitya. Prema vaichitya is when the lover and the beloved are together, but paradoxically, they're feeling separation. Some examples of that could be, we'll give several examples, but one or two simple ones are when Krishna's leaving Vrindavan and Radharani is there and Krishna's on the chariot of Akrura. They're together, but they're feeling separation. That's prema vaichitya. Or for those of you who read Lalita Madhav, if you haven't, you should. In the Nava Vrindavan garden, there was a deity of Krishna who Radharani began to worship. And one day Krishna came there and saw, who's worshiping this deity? Wait, Manomangal, somebody's coming. Hide the deity in the bushes. And Krishna stood there like the deity. And Radharani came and said, wow, this is really some deity. And Krishna's looking at Radharani. In a little background, they think that they're separated and they're far from each other. And Krishna's astonished. He says, wow, Vishwakarma really created an amazing, like a monogram or like a hologram of Srimati Radharani. It's not real, he was thinking. And Radharani's astonished that he's talking. So they're together, but they're feeling separation. That's prema vaichitya. The fourth type of separation is prabhas. And there's two types of prabhas, dura prabhas and sudura prabhas. Dura prabhas is when Krishna goes to some other village, some other forest for the day, to Kamyavan or some other place, and the gopis can't see him for a few hours. And they're feeling prabhas, separation from a distance. That's dura prabhas. Sudura prabhas is when Krishna goes to Mathura or Dwarka, and the gopis don't know if they'll ever see him again. So of that sudura prabhas, now we're going to go deeper into that. There's what's called dasami dasa, 10 different stages of that sudura prabhas, because that sudura prabhas is the most intense. Now, this may seem very, very theoretical, but it's actually important and it's actually relevant for all of us. And I can explain a little bit how that is. First of all, because we want to understand Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is two opposites in one container. There's both union and separation together. He's predominantly feeling separation, but there's union because he's Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anyan. He's a combined form of Radha and Krishna. So what does it mean, those two opposites together? As I mentioned, there's four types of union also. I won't go into that right now. But the last of which is called Samriddhiman Sambhog. Sambhog means union. Samriddhiman means fully enriched. Samriddhiman Sambhog only takes place after Sudara Prabhas. So when the Samriddhi Sambhava, the greatest union, combined with the greatest separation, that's Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So unless we understand something about these different stages, we can't understand Mahaprabhu. Furthermore, an initial way we can appreciate this too is that we have this kind of separation from Guru. Sometimes a devotee in the beginning, it really wants to have a Guru, but he's not really sure. I mean, here's about some Maharaj, and he's just hankering, I really want to meet him, I really want to get to see him, but they haven't met yet. But he's feeling some separation. That's Purvava. And there's also Man. Sometimes the disciple feels a little sulky with Gurudev. Guru Maharaj, you did this or that, and doesn't want to go to see him even or something. That happens. Sometimes the devotees are a little sulky with Srila Prabhupada, even in a transcendental loving way. And this Prema Vaichitya, where sometimes the devotees are with Gurudev and they're thinking about, oh, I don't know how long I'm going to have your association. You may be leaving this world soon. You're together, but you're feeling separation. And then there's Prabhas, and Prabhas is also Dura and Sudura. Dura Prabhas, he's here in Czech, but he's in Prague. He's a long ways away. Or maybe he's in America or something, which could be said to be Sudura Prabhas. Or Sudura Prabhas could be said that when Gurudev leaves this world, and we don't know if we're going to see him again or not. So these feelings are what's being discussed here. And we should understand, why is the Bhagavatam, it's called Mahachintya Bhagavata, said in Chaitanya Bhagavata. It's completely inconceivable. Because the Bhagavatam is a Bhava Grantha. It's not something, you may have a huge IQ, but you can't understand Bhagavatam unless you have a heart. Prema Moyi Bhagavata, Krishna and Shriyanga. The Bhagavatam is made out of Krishna Prema. It's part of Krishna's body. So it's a book which is meant to help us understand feelings. And similarly, the Chaitanya Charitamrita is also meant to help us understand the feelings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we want to understand this. It has some relevance for us because this is, we want to understand the feelings of Mahaprabhu. And we want to understand the feelings of the devotees, because devotees also go through this dasami, dasa, 10 different stages. Chinta, anxiety, jagara, where they can't sleep at all. And the gopis, sometimes they're praying that they're saying that, oh Krishna, at least if I could fall asleep, then I could dream of you. But I can't even fall asleep because I'm so mad. And udvega, if someone's just completely having this mental agitation. Tanava means that the body's becoming very thin and wasted away. Malinangata. Malinangata means when the gopis, they don't even take bath. They don't even change their cloth because of this madness and separation from Krishna. And that's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the 5th stage. The 6th stage of Dasami Dasa is Pralap. They begin to talk like a mad person, and they say all kinds of crazy things. And the 7th stage is Vyadi, where they have like disease. The 8th is called Unmada, madness. The 9th is Moha, fainting. And the 10th is Mrityu, or death. So today I'd like to try to finish the last 3, beginning with Unmada, madness. And very much here, when we worked on this lecture, this transcription, I found what he was doing was he was reading from Bengali commentary of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta for Chaitanya Charitamrita. And in that Bengali commentary, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta gave all these different 10 stages, and he gives different examples of them from the writings of the Goswamis. So the 8th stage is Unmada, madness. Chaitanya Prabhu and devotees there, we have quite a few, Leela Purushottam's on there too. I'm going to go ahead and show this on my screen, but maybe I'll go ahead and just read by myself this time, because our time's a little short. Maya. Why isn't it showing up? There it is. Okay. Sorry. So this stage is mentioned in Ujjwala Money. Brahmati bhavanagare nimitam hasanti pratayati tavavartam chitan anucheta su lutati cha bhuvi radha kampitangi murare vishama viraha vedogari vibranta chitta. And this is spoken by Uddhava. Uddhava is making some report. He's speaking to Krishna. Krishna, what can I say to you about the situation of Srimati Radharani? She is in such a situation of separation from me, she's become mad. And she's become, everyone's speaking about her as Pagalini Radha, mad Radha. And she's moving here in the house. She's asking everyone and everything, where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? She's speaking to unconscious things. She asks the pillar, she asks the wall, where's Krishna? Where's Krishna? Sometimes she's crying, rolling on the ground, laughing, roaring, standing up, falling down. This is Srimati Radharani. So we find this in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also, especially in Jagannath Puri, that sometimes Mahaprabhu is speaking to the trees and plants in Jagannath Vallabha garden, just as the gopis also did in separation from Krishna. Sometimes the gopis, they would see a black tamal tree and they would think, oh, it's Krishna. Other times the gopis would see a black tamal tree with a golden creeper coiled around it. And the gopis would become very shy and they would put their chadar over the golden creeper, because it means to them that Radharani is embracing Krishna, and we shouldn't be seeing this in public. And their madness, and then their madness, sometimes they're talking to the trees. This is the emotions of Srimati Radharani, and this is what Krishna wanted to come to taste. And therefore, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he says that Radhikara Bhava Murti Prabhuda Antara, that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's heart was like the mirror image of Srimati Radharani's emotions. And Kaviraj Goswami, he says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Loke nahi suni. Nobody's ever heard of. Shastri nahi suni. He says, Loke nahi deki. Nobody's ever seen. Shastri nahi suni. We've never heard in Shastra about the kind of ecstasies that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited in Jagannath Puri. It's not listed in the Asasaptikara Bhav. Tears are shooting from his eyes like from a syringe, blood's coming from his skin, his body's becoming elongated. He's going through all his dasa, but in a very, very intense kind of way. So this is a mood of Srimati Radharani that Krishna's experiences as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So let's go on to the next one now. Trying to be a little quick, and I'm going to ask everybody if they have any reflections at the end. So if it helps you to make a note or something, go ahead and do that. But be ready. And I want to try to speak for maybe another 20 minutes or something, and we'll go ahead and stop. There we go. Just trying to find where to read from. So then he speaks about the ninth dasa, the ninth stage. That's moha, or fainting. And again, he's quoting from Ujjwala Mani, wherein he's speaking about a letter that Lalita is writing to Krishna describing Radharani's condition. And her condition, she says, is such, these, by the way, what you're seeing here, there's a Bengali Paya verses There's a Sanskrit slok from Ujjwala Mani, and then there's, in this case, there's 5 verses which are Bengali. Those are Bengali, not Sanskrit. And these Bengali verses were written by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. These are Bengali paya. Paya is a kind of Bengali poetry. That's the Jaho Bhagavata Pada Vaishnava Snani Kanta Sraya Kota Chaitanya Charni. If you know that verse, that's Bengali paya, that particular meter. So he wrote these all in Bengali paya. It's kind of a translation in general of what was just said. So Lalita Krishna Ashtani Likila Patrika. Likila means to write, and Patrika means a letter. And she wrote this letter, and she said that Suvicheri Murcha Labhya Radhika, that Srimati Radharani is becoming Murcha. She's fainting, unconscious. This Murcha is another synonym for the word moha. And her condition, that Lalita says, is very, very precarious, very, very dangerous situation. She can't survive. She may die at any moment. This is the 9th stage of Dasani Dasa, where just before death. And she's fainting, she's falling over again and again. And Lalita tells Krishna that today or maybe tomorrow you're going to get news that Radharani's dead. So Krishna, if you're happy, then you stay there happily. Lalita says in a very intense kind of way. So this is the 9th situation. It sounds very ghastly for devotees to hear, but as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes, this situation is the greatest suffering and also the greatest ecstasy. And we hear about this in different religions. I'd like to read you something from the book of Psalms of David from the Bible, Psalm 13, in English translation. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest my enemies say, I have prevailed over him. Lest my foes rejoice because I'm shaken. But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me. I'm sorry, it's a little fancy English. There's a similar description also to this given in Srila Jiva Goswami's Gopal Champu, wherein after Krishna stayed in Mathura, he didn't return to Braj with Nanda Maharaj, there were a series of letters exchanged back and forth between Krishna and the cowherd boys and the gopis. But there was no letter written by Srimati Radharani. Finally, Krishna got a letter from some of Radharani's Sakhis. And that letter, they wrote, Vaidis Tattvalanti Danvatarivan Madhopuriyam Umada Pasmarajam Riti Riti Kritikam Mahosadam Prishtam. The letter described that in Mathura, there are doctors who are as expert as Dhanvantari, Vaidis Tattvalanti Danvatarivan. Madhopuriyam, in that place, Madhopurya, in Mathura, there are doctors as expert as Dhanvantari. So you should inquire from them if they know any Mahoshari, any strong medicine that can counteract madness, epilepsy, and death. That's the only message that was given about Srimati Radharani. Nothing directly from her, just this from her Sakhis. So this is Moha, the 9th stage, and which comes just before death, where the beloved is fainting and can't live in separation from the beloved. So let's see, I'm going to go on to the next part here. The 10th dasa is Mityu, or death. And Guru Maharaj Srila Bhaktisiddhanta quotes a verse, the 96th verse of Rupa Goswami's Hansa Duda, which is referring to a letter that Lalita wrote to, sends a message to a swan, a Hamsa. But Guru Maharaj comments here, he says, Srila Prabhupada has written this purport of Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 1341. In this connection, one should refer to Srimati Radharani's soliloquy, means her mad talks, lonely talks, after meeting Uddhava and Vrindavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented a similar picture of such ecstatic imagery, imaginary talking, full of jealousy and madness, sympathizing, neglect by Krishna. Srimati Radharani, criticizing a bumblebee, talked just like a mad woman. Similarly, Mahaprabhu in the last days of his pastimes exhibited all the symptoms of such ecstasy. And so then this verse from Lita Madhav, which I'm just skipping the Sanskrit, we're going a little fast. Lalita sent this message to a swan, to Krishna, who was in Mathura. And Lalita accused Krishna. Why are you neglecting my dear Saki? During the Ras Leela, you bound Radharani up with the rope of love. But now what happened to you? Now you're neglecting her. Why are you doing that? Why are you so neglectful? Radharani is always thinking all these crazy thoughts. Previously I said her condition is dying. Now today, tomorrow, the next day, you'll get news that Radha is dead. You may come now, take a piece of cotton and put it in front of her nose. If the cotton moves, you can condemn me. If there's no breathing coming out, her breathing is stopped, then Radharani is dead. You come and test and see if her breathing is there. Why are you so neglectful of my dear Saki? Why are you bound up with such a tight bondage of love during the rasa dance, but now you're neglectful? So this is Mrityu, or death, the final dasani, dasa, the stage of Mrityu. So Guru Maharaj comments that all these stages are manifested during the time of acute feelings of separation, and all of these stages were found in Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So what is his mood? Who is he? This you should understand. So this last stage, first of all, it doesn't sound very nice, does it? It sounds completely horrific and terrible. But if we don't understand something about this, we can't understand Gauranga Mahaprabhu. We won't be able to understand the writings of the six Goswamis. In Lalita Madhav in Act 3, Srila Rupa Goswami describes the words of Srimati Radharani. Vratar Vayasa Mandali Mukatahe Niskramya Kustad Ita Sandesham Vada Vandonatadamamun Brinta Vidrayame Dagdum Prana Pasum Siki Virahabur Inde Mad Angalaye Sandram Nadada Chandrabindi Rabasad Asargala Bandhanam. Shlagam means praise. Srimati Radharani begins to praise a crow. She sees a crow flying by. And Shlagam, Bratam, she addresses the crow as Bratam, my dear brother. And she praises the crows. This is a complete madness, what she's saying. She says that you're Vyasa Mandali Mukutta, you're the crest jewel of all youths, my dear crow. She's speaking very sweet words to the crow. She says that when you leave Braj, you please go to Mathura and you offer obeisances to Krishna, who she describes as the king of Vrindavan. Offer obeisances to him and give him this message. Dagdum prana pasum siki virhara bur inde mad angalai. That, my dear Krishna, You're a cowherd boy. You're a Gwala. You're a Vaishya. You understand what's very important. If there's a fire in the building, your first duty is not to save the television or your computer. First duty is to save the animals, even before your wife or children, because they can manage to run out on their own. But the animals who are locked up in the house, locked up in the shed, they can't get out and they're going to die. So you tell Krishna that the building of my body is on fire with separation. And it's his duty to come and unbolt the door. There's a bolt, there's a lock on the door, and I'm going to die. I can't get out of this house. And what is that lock that's keeping me from going out? Krishna's words, his promise when he left Vrindavan, he said, Ayasya, Ayasya. I'm going to return, I'm going to return. So you please unlock that bolt, that firm bolt of hope that keeps the animal in the burning building. In other words, let me die. Let me die in peace. We find in the writings of different poets and great thinkers in the world, sometimes speaking about how death can be a release from the pangs of this world, and even sometimes they speak about suicide and things. But we don't find the perfection of that anywhere except in Braj Leela. In Alita Madhav, in the next act of Alita Madhav, this is from the third act, then in the fourth act, Krishna leaves. He leaves in the third act. In the fourth act, Srimati Radharani becomes Unmada and completely mad. And Rupa Goswami describes that she goes to the Jamuna and she drowns herself in the Jamuna. Now for devotees, you think, my God, that's just ghastly. Who wants to read that? Why would Rupa Goswami write that? Because we have this disease, Atmavan Manyate Jagat, that we think that the way that I think, Rupa Goswami must also think. If I can't understand something, Rupa Goswami can't understand it either. We're trying to understand things through our personal perspective, but we need to enlarge our perspective and try to understand Srimati Radharani's mood, because then we can understand the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And my Guru Maharaj used to say, there's one lecture he gave, someone titled it, the bhajan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a desire for death. And he was speaking about different verses in Chaitanya Charitamrita where Mahaprabhu was desiring to die. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are several different stories of Mahaprabhu tries to commit suicide. In Chaitanya Bhagavat, once he ran, he was going to jump into the Ganga and drown himself. And the devotees stopped him. So he has this very intense desire. This is something so unpalatable for us with our material consciousness that we can't even begin to consider it. But we should look at it and understand the very, very deep emotions. Just like recently, we were in one country and there was a devotee there we were introduced to, and she was a very troubled soul. She grew up in an abused situation, and she tried to commit suicide. She wanted to have a sex change operation, become like a boy. She didn't do that. And speaking with the devotees about this lady, and seeing her, I told them, I said, she's feeling all this because she just doesn't want to be in this world. She doesn't want to be in this body. And you should see it as a manifestation of her sincerity. All that happened before she became a devotee. It's not that now I'm a Hare Krishna devotee, therefore I should go cut my throat or whatever. But those feelings are happening before. And we should try to understand the heart of that person and appreciate it, not just treat them like they're a mad person. They're mad materially, but spiritually they're the most sane person. So in that sense, this kind of desire for death, which is the bhajan of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and indeed the bhajan of different great saints. Even we hear about this Saint Teresa who was living in Kolkata, and how she, after she passed away, someone found her diaries, And it was so depressing what she wrote that they didn't want to share it because they thought people will lose faith or whatever. And she was writing to the Lord saying, have you forgotten me? Why have you given up on me? Everything is dark. Everything is lost. I'm so lonely. Why don't you pay attention to me? It's what some poets call the dark night of the soul. And it sounds really, really horrific. But according to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, that's also the greatest ecstasy, paradoxically. When someone is feeling such intense separation from Krishna, and in that separation, Krishna is personally present. So Rupa Goswami describes the suicide of Radharani in Lalita Madhav in the fourth act. He also mentions it in Ujjwala Nilamani, that just unable to tolerate, to bear the separation from Krishna, Radharani goes and drowns herself in the Jamuna. So if, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu once said, that if I really had love, I have no love. If I really had love, I wouldn't be alive. I'd be dead. So we know from mundane poets like Shakespeare and his famous drama Living Without Each Other, when Juliet saw that she thought Romeo was dead, and she took her own life, and vice versa. And Romeo saw her dead, and he had to, I can't live without you. And when we think that mundane poets, this is a real expression of real love. So even if mundane poets can understand that intense feeling of love, what to speak of the love of Srimati Radharani and the love of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, where they just can't tolerate living without. And of course, there's no question of Srimati Radharani committing suicide. She has an eternal transcendental body. And we hear in Lalita Madhav that after she drowns herself in the Jamuna, then Jamuna Devi takes her to her father, Suryadev. And Suryadev in turn gives her over to, in Dwarka, Krishna Kun, Satyajit, thank you. And she becomes known then as Satyabhama. Thank you. My brain's not working. She becomes known then as Satyabhama. Thank you, Krishna Kun. So Rupa Goswami describes that there's no question of Radharani committing suicide. The purpose of understanding this thing is not to say that somebody died and it's so depressing. We intrinsically consider death to be depressing and terrible. That's just, we equate it with that. But take off our blinders, take off our prejudice, and look at it from a different way, and the feelings of very, very intense separation. And we see that even in rare cases, this also happens with devotees. We saw in the case of Vasikananda Prabhu, when he left this world, he entered into the body of Kirchor Gopinath in Ramuna. And there's no samadhi of him because he entered into the deity. But now there's samadhi there in Ramuna of his flute and his shoes and a few of his articles. And around that samadhi, there's, 5 or 6 smaller samadhis of disciples who left their body when their guru left his body. This is mrityu. This is at the topmost feeling of separation. And we hear, and I maybe can point out in my own Guru Maharaj, to that when he left this world in Mayapur, he was speaking about the pastimes of Radha and Krishna and how Krishna returned to Vrindavan and saw Radharani in a dying condition. And he became so emotional and so caught up in it. I spoke with the devotees who were present there in the room, and one of them said that tears were coming to his eyes, and the other said that his voice was becoming choked up. And then he just said, I'm sorry, I can't speak anymore. And he sent them away. And then he told the devotees to do kirtan. He asked for a picture of Gopal, and looked at the picture of Gopal and called out the deity's name and lay back on the bed and closed his eyes and never opened them again. That's how he left his world. At that time, Bhakta Rupa Prabhu, who was there, he ran to get Damodar Swarup, who was our doctor for some time. He has a PhD in Ayurvedic medicine. He comes from family, a lineage of Ayurvedic doctors. Damodar Sri Prabhu has a gold medal from the World Health Organization for successfully treating AIDS patients. He's a pretty amazing doctor. Anyway, Damodar came and took Guru Maharaj's pulse. And at first, he told me later, he said that when I first came, he was present. And by his pulse, there was nothing wrong with him. And then I took his pulse again another 10 minutes or so later, and he was gone. And he said, I've never seen a death like this. And he mentioned this dasa me dasa. He said there's 10 different symptoms of ecstasy, the last of which is death. And I could see on his body all the different symptoms of ecstasy. He said he just left this world. So perhaps it's appropriate that we remember Guru Maharaj when speaking about this particular subject. So I want to stop there and ask if anybody here has any reflections they want to share. Viren Prabhu, would you like to share anything? We can see your smiling face. It would also be really nice. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, Madhavananda Prabhu. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, bear with me. Yeah, give me 1 second. I think my phone, you probably heard me on mobile as well.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, we're going into load shedding. So sorry, I've been running around just trying to make some alternative arrangements for my mum so she can have her oxygen. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, sorry, Madhavananda Prabhu. Not really much to say. I mean, really, really beautiful class. So, I remember just this, this conversation that took place between Radharani and the crow. So I remember Radhanath Maharaj narrating this. And I remember even at that time when when Maharaj narrated it, I had goosebumps. And just hearing you narrate it again now, reminded me of it. And once again, that feeling of goosebumps. So, from my side, not much. But, the one thing is, sometimes I wonder it would have been really, really, just to enter into that mood, just to experience even a fraction of it. Just when like, as an example, the gopis, or as you mentioned, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Goswamis used to talk to the trees, and just to understand, their feelings, because obviously, the trees and everything else in Braj was witness to Krishna's leelas. So, just to be able to enter and experience just a fraction of that. I mean, so while you were talking, I was thinking, I wonder if I'll ever even achieve that in this lifetime, where I can even experience just a fraction of that.
There's a pathway for that experience. And the pathway for that is that we have love for Guru. And when we experience separation from our Gurudev, then we may also experience some of these feelings. Guru Maharaj spoke like that. Some of the devotees in another one of our groups, it's a question I have to answer today. They're asking, how do we cry for Krishna? And Guru Maharaj's reply was that he told Jagadappa, his godbrother, he said that after I leave this world, then you'll understand. Then you'll be able to do that. So it's a postgraduate experience in bhakti. When we lose our physical association with Gurudev, and it's a great test for us. And we see how deep we've gone in the relationship with him. Anyway, I'm going to go on quickly now. Thank you, Viren Prabhu. You look good. Thank Krishna. It's nice to see you, Prabhuji. I really hope that we can keep doing
Thanks,
this. Hey, Manti, do you want to share anything? Are you there?
Hare Krishna, Madhavananda Prabhu. I'm so sorry for joining a bit late. I've been a bit under the weather, but it's been so enlivening to be with everyone again. I've been also attended a program recently for spiritual master that I'm aspiring for, And in his class, he talked about how the guru doesn't take any commission for what he gives. And just your comment also about, disciples leaving their body in separation after their Guru Maharaj leaves. I think it's such a, like you said, a postgraduate feeling to have so much of faith and love for one's guru. And I think in my own spiritual life, that's something that I'm learning to develop. So that's just something I wanted to share.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Darren was saying, what can I say about all this? But when we're looking at a subject matter from the intellectual perspective, and the topic is such a high, very philosophical, very elevated subject that we were not so familiar with. How many devotees are familiar with this subject? Then we think, oh, I don't have any comments. But really, we have comments, as you made and as Viren also made, because it's meant, how did it strike our heart? How did it touch us in that way? So thank you, Hemante. I appreciate that. Anir,
Thank you.
do you want to share anything, Anir?
Yeah, Prabhu, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, can we see you also? It would be really fortunate.
Yeah, sorry. I'm in my car at the moment and it's rather dark. So I just wanted to tell you about something about so the Bhakti Vaibhav in Mayapur. We went through Arjuna's feelings when Krishna had left the planets, and I was just sort of drawing some parallels to that, where he says sort of some similar ideas as to some of the points that we mentioned just now about he was inconsolable at the beginning, and then eventually he remembered Krishna's instructions from the Bhagavad Gita, and that gave him some sort of source of comfort. But again, it was how he was not able to sustain himself without the Lord's association, and those types of ideas.
Nice. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada stressed that so much with us in ways I think that maybe we oftentimes don't really fully understand, that we can fully associate through the instructions of the spiritual master. We may think, well, that's something like someone reading Shakespeare or Tolstoy or some author, and I'm associating with them. And we can associate with those authors through reading their works. But it's a different thing when we're associating with Gurudev and we're meditating on the instructions that he's given us, which are personal life and soul. So thank you, Prabhuji. I appreciate that. Mukunda, do you want to share anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Can we get to see
Hare
you?
Krishna. Okay, let me just see if I can get it on.
Wow.
Is that okay? Okay. Hare Krishna. Nice to hear from you again, Prabhu. It's been like such a long time. Yes, I was just focusing on the things you were saying about all the different intense levels, that Srimati Radharani actually goes through. And I was trying to think that, if she goes through all of that, what is it actually that Mahaprabhu is really going through? Because he's the embodiment of both Radha and Krishna together. So he's experiencing this intense unions and these intense separations all by himself. How does he manage? Okay, he's a Supreme Lord, but I was just thinking, how does he manage to contain all of that within himself? Yeah. Because it's quite intense,
Yeah.
I mean, you spoke about the highest level of madness here, where someone is actually committing suicide. To a natural, mundane person, it may seem ridiculous to hear something like this. But from a spiritual platform, it's something else, So how does Mahaprabhu actually contain all of this within himself? It's amazing just to think how he manages all of that, being the Supreme Lord anyway. That's just the thought.
Krishna Goswami describes that sometimes the different ecstasies were like different soldiers who are fighting inside of the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they're going in. Goswami explains that we've never heard of any ecstasy like this anywhere. It's just beyond understanding. That's about
Yeah, it's pretty intense, you know. Because you hear about Mahaprabhu's pastimes, where he's at one stage his arms retract. This was in Jagannath Puri. You tend to think, how does Mahaprabhu actually contain all of this within himself? And sometimes he lets it out. But just that idea of containing it all within.
To my knowledge, there's no acharyas who've written commentaries explaining that either. Indeed, as Kaviraj Goswami, he's our acharya, he's commented that Loki Nahi Deki, no one's ever seen it, Shastri Nahi Suni, there's no Shastra which has ever described it. That's his commentary on these ecstasies. Although I would suggest that if we think about them carefully, some of them we might find some clues. For example, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifests a Kurma Roop form, and his arms and legs go inside of his body, well, who is that like? And in the book Mahabhav Prakash by Kanai Kuntia, he speaks about Lord Jagannath, who's a form of Mahabhav Prakash, and also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Jagannath, his arms and legs have gone inside of his body. He's manifested this kind of form. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested a similar kind of form. That's about all that I could do. And it may not be an intellectual understanding, but at least we have some appreciation of something from the heart. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Looks like it's getting warm there now, huh?
Yes, it is. You can see me in a skipper now. No more jersey.
How you guys do? It's been a few weeks you were dressed in warm clothes. Now I'm dressed in warm clothes. It's almost as cold here as Siberia. It's really intense.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's what it feels like to me. Anybody here in the room have any reflections you want to share? Yeah?
Yeah.
Little Purushottam, maybe you could come over close and say something so the device can hear.
Make a note on your device. I was really struck with the idea of disciples' man towards Guru. That you mentioned that you can, that we as a sadhakas can parallel these 4 stages of Vipralamba in relationship to Guru. So man, I was expecting that you will politely avoid it, like, okay, that's not for this, but you still included it. So it will be interesting to see, to have a clue on how could it be pure from disciple.
I can give you an example. When Srila Prabhupada was leaving this world, he called to the devotees and gave them an instruction. He said, I want you to get a cart, put me on the cart, and take me around Govardhan Hill. And the doctors told the devotees that if you do that, he's going to die. His body won't be able to take it. There's only 2 devotees who agreed to do what Srila Prabhupada said. That was Lokanath Maharaj and Naveen Maharaj. That's what Prabhupada said. But the other devotees, we may find fault with them or whatever, but Tamal Krishna Maharaj was a little sulky, a little angry with Prabhupada. No, you can't do that. And that's a manifestation of his love. And in this particular case, of course, I'll definitely side with my Guru Maharaj's feelings, how he wanted to serve Prabhupada instructed. But when we get into the realm of feelings, Vedanta, and it's not that this one's right and this one's wrong. In the realm of feelings, both may be right. There may be so many different things that are, because that's a manifestation of the love.
It's so wonderful. Example and even the explanation. And there's always for me a trouble, and probably you might solve it in one sentence. is there a way for us sadhakas, conditioned souls, to in any possible way grasp in an intellectual way this phenomena that either suffering or happiness is on the spiritual platform, is part of the bliss, is part of the spiritual blissfulness of ananda, although it manifests as suffering, what we have just heard now from you, so many examples. So we know, like how, or is it just the object of a transcendental realization?
Even in the mundane world, I once read a famous biography of Michelangelo. And the title says it all. It's called The Agony and the Ecstasy. And we understand that sometimes in the life of great artists, great thinkers, great lovers, as we're hearing about the greatest lovers, Srimati Radharani and Krishna, how there's just intense agony, but that agony is right next to the greatest ecstasy. And we see that even in the material world, people, they see great personalities like Michelangelo or Van Gogh, who cut off his ear in his madness of ecstasy. And what kind of person does that? That's such a very, very intense ecstasy. We can't, as individuals, perhaps understand that. And perhaps in some ways we shouldn't. If we try, then we become sahaja-like. And to give another example, it's just like if we see a very intimate, loving couple, and you try to understand that the woman's or the man's love for that woman. As an outsider, you can't understand, and it's not for you to try to speculate on that. We can appreciate it, we can look at it, something, we can say, oh, that's a very loving thing, but we, by nature of that love, it's so private, you can't enter into it. We're meant to enter into this by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But at this point, all we can have is some kind of appreciation. But it's that appreciation which facilitates our journey on the way to that thing. If we didn't have that desire to go there, didn't have hope that this is actually possible that I can attain that. So we need to hear about it. It's important in that way. Is that helpful?
Yeah. Meaning that theoretical level of relating to these descriptions will be the drive for us to, in the future, being able to live it, to experience it.
Yeah, we say theoretical, but Shrim Vitam Swakata Krishna Punishravana Kirtana, we want to hear this, and it becomes something we realize. Just like, why is it that people like poetry? Why is it that people like romantic stories? Because you feel something. When you watch some film like it, it brings some feeling out of your heart. So when we hear about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the gopis and these feelings,
Wow. Yeah, this is really far out. Because that means this is no, it's I have no words. That means that feeling which is created by hearing about it is real, although it's not specifically like my feeling for this. Like I hear about Radharani's separation from Krishna, and it creates certain feelings, and these feelings are real, although I don't feel the same feelings as Radharani feels to Krishna. Yeah, this is really hard.
Therefore, Rupa Goswami describes what is Bhava Bhas, what is a reflection or a semblance of ecstasy, and a semblance of feeling, of bhav, which comes from hearing from somebody or hearing about something. We want to hear from the right source, and we don't want to imitate that. Srila Prabhupada has cautioned us so much, and especially in Czech, we have a lot of warnings about that, I think. We don't want to try to imitate that, but we need to hear about it. If we don't hear about it, then what is our goal? And therefore Bhakti Vinod, it says that one of the anarthas in the heart is Tattva Vidrama. not understanding tattva, not understanding rasa, not understanding what is the goal of things. Viren Prabhu's comment, I really appreciate the way you place the importance of Guru in our lives. Without Guru and his mercy, nothing is possible in spiritual life. Chaitanya Prabhu, second side. Anybody else with anything? Can you come close and say, they're being really nice and devotees online can hear. I'm sorry to trouble you. I'm really troubling. Hare Krishna, thank you.
I don't know whether it is completely to the topic, but when I've been hearing this, just came this question to my mind when Radharani, when she's at home, I think you said it's this 8th stage of this study, and she's mad and crying and like screaming, like talking always, where is Krishna, where is Krishna? So the question came that where is Abhimanyu if he watches all this, or is it because she's at home and completely
What does Abhimanyu think?
Where he is, what is like yes.
Vishnu, that sometimes when Radharani is feeling separation, they think it's some kind of sickness or something, and she has some kind of fever because they can't understand. But that's about all I could touch on with that. Okay, thank you, Hare Krishna. Chaitanya Prabhu, do you want to wrap it up? Any things from you before you have to put your boy to sleep, or maybe you've already put him to sleep?
No, he's running around right now, Prabhu, but it's all fine. So Devi's there to take care of him. Prabhu, I was just thinking about the other element around, we're saying we can't understand these things, so and it's all about the feelings. So if you approach it obviously academically, then you can't get it. And then we are often that, the price to pay to understand, get the feeling is greed. But how does that, what does that greed look like? Or at least in this initial phases of ours? We definitely don't have the natural greed for it, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, one reason why this is so difficult for persons to understand is because this is the embodiment of the Bhagavatam statement of the Hoitaki Apatiyata. It's the embodiment of these two things. It's the last limit. There's no other motivation. But they don't even want to live. If I can't live. And indeed, Radharani and the gopis, sometimes it's said that they want to commit suicide, but there's one thing that keeps them from committing suicide. Because they think, well, Krishna promised he's going to return. And when he returns and he sees that we're all dead, Krishna's heart will be broken. So we have to live for that. So that's the last limit of a Hoitaki. There's no personal motivation. And therefore, who can understand this? Because everybody else, we can understand something about religion. They're doing it for money. They're doing it for prestige. They're doing it for liberation. There's some selfish motivation. But within Krishna consciousness, in Gaudiya Vaishnavism is the highest expression of that Ahoitaki. And it's apratiyata. And the last limit of that apratiyata, that love which never ends, is this suicide, this desire for suicide. And Radharani, even as she dies, it doesn't stop. It goes on forever and ever. So I don't know if that helps. Is it Chaitanya Prabhu?
Oh, no, yes, it does, Prabhu. It absolutely does.
Yeah, externally, this greed that we have, it looks like a kind of madness, and even for devotees. I being in Krishna consciousness or being around this movement, such an amazing movement for some years, I've seen some people who just, everybody just thinks they're wacko. That they got a few marbles missing or something. And yeah, they're kind of a special person, it's true. I know one such devotee who lives in Lithuania, and everybody makes fun of him, whatever. He's just kind of a crazy guy, whatever. But I was speaking with a devotee who sometimes stayed with him when he was traveling. this devotee just gets up and like he's sleepwalking and gets his bead bag and starts chanting, and then lays back down, and then he gets up again and starts chanting. And it's not an ordinary thing. And from us, from our perspective, we just see this guy looks completely crazy and he doesn't know how to comb his hair. He's got 2 different socks on, and he's just like a complete idiot. We can't appreciate it. We can't understand that greed. And we have to be very, very careful when we deal with Vaishnavas. Very, very careful. We were speaking something about this earlier today at the Sunday Feast program, about how sometimes devotees, they look like a strange person, like Jayananda Prabhu, seemed like the garbage man. And be careful, don't criticize that garbage man. You don't understand who that person is, or someone who just looks like a complete mad person. That's the nature of greed. And even for devotees, sometimes in our movement, we can't understand it. And we try to, Atmavan Manite Jagat, we try to apply our attitude toward everything else, both individually and collectively. We're strengthened in our conviction of our sense of reality or understanding when other people have the same idea. And when there's other devotees who have the same idea, we think this is Krishna consciousness. Because there's 5 other devotees who have the same understanding that I do. And all 5 of us agree that that guy is just completely wacko. He's a complete nut, so it must be a fact. But be careful. Be very, very careful. Is that helpful, Chaitanya Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhu, that's really, really helpful. And I appreciate your comment around that element of kind of not judging devotees, because I mean, and it's a tough one because we're so naturally quick to make a judgment about these kind of things. And we should just, I suppose, shy away and rather see from a point of appreciation of what they may be going through.
You've been a temple president. You've been a temple president for, I don't know, half your life or something, and not now, I know, but it's really hard for managers. I was a temple president for some years in Seattle, Washington, and it's very, very hard for them because I'll give you an example, beautiful example. I think it's my godbrother Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu is a temple president in Gadai for many years, and sometimes there's people who are there who are just, they're talking to the wall. There's somebody who's not there, or they're a troublemaker, and this and that. And the devotees go to Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu and they say, you got to kick this guy out. He's crazy. He's causing problems. He's talking to women too much. He's this or that. And Chaitanya Chandra Prabhu frustrates a lot of people because he says, Gopal's in charge. Whatever Gopal, and he's like a hands-off manager. And you would think, my God, it must be complete chaos there. And sometimes it seems like that. But it's a fact. Gopal takes care of things, always in the end. And that crazy person just decides, and here I'm talking about somebody who may be mundane crazy, we call it bipolar or something, very angry, whatever. And they just decide one day to go away. Or someone changes their mood or something, because Gopal takes care. It's very beautiful. We should just take shelter of Krishna that way. But it's difficult for parents, for managers, for organizers. You have an obligation. You have to chastise the child or the person in the temple. Other people are disturbed by him. You have to say something. And it's not easy, because sometimes we don't understand the child either. The child may who knows what they're thinking. When I was a little, I shouldn't use myself as an example, but I used to have like these terror strikes in my life, and my parents couldn't understand. I remember as a little boy, I would wake up with this intense feeling, I have to make this boat. I have to make this boat. My God, I have to make, and just kind of in my sleep, I'd be making this boat, doing this thing, and then I'd be going into my parents' room, I got to build this boat. I have to do this thing. And I think in retrospect, it was some desire for me to do something spiritual. My parents couldn't understand. Poor baby, just give him something to make him sleep or something. It's difficult to understand for managers and parents in that. Okay, anything else, Chaitanya Prabhu? I think Chaitanya Prabhu is taking care of his son or something. He's busy. This is a hard time of night. So we're going to go ahead and stop here. And Krishna Kund, next week is the 9th. We're going to be giving a talk in Budapest, right? At the Bhaktivedanta College. Do you know the time? Can we make a plan here for this? No, I'm actually next Sunday. The 9th.
Thursday.
What time is that? 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Because see, 3 o'clock is the time, 2:30 Budapest time is the time we usually do our programs. And that's the ideal time for the devotees in South Africa. So Chaitanya Prabhu, probably next week, I can't promise, but probably next week we can do this if we do it at the same time as this now, this session. So
Yeah.
we can discuss it and think about it, and I'll let you guys digest it and we'll see. Okay?
Yeah. Next week Sunday is also, that's the first day of Kartik, right? I think.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few programs happening at the temples here. There's all the Spartasarti Maharaj is also around, so I think a lot of devotees will be there for that program. But let's check on the group, and then let's agree what can work best for all of us.
Next week we're starting chapter 6, which is the fainting of Ramananda Roy.
Amazing.
One of my favorites.
Amazing.
Okay, thank you, Chaitanya. Thank you, everybody. Srila
Thank you so
Prabhupada,
much, bro.
Samaveda Bhaktivinda Ki, Goprem Hari Hari, Anchakalpa Darubhascha,